Hello. Welcome in. It's Friday night and we feel all right. That's Montel Jordan. So, welcome into Without a Map, number 16 in my Footsteps podcast. This is my, I would say weekly live stream, but yeah, I wasn't here last week. So, there's so many things that went on. Landon, your first one in. My nephew Landon is in the chat for those of you watching this after it goes live. So normally I start off by talking about the most recent episode of the podcast, but I thought it might be more fun to explain just where I was last week and all of the fun things that have gone on in the last couple weeks. And they've been mostly fun. Seventh time what? That you've been first? Well, there you go. Hi, Mrs. Swicker. Don't worry, I can't see you. I just see that you're in the chat. John popped in once and thought I could see him in the chat, like actually see him there. And he popped right out because he was scared that I could see him. So, let's just start off with, it was supposed to be every Friday at 8 p.m. I do this. Last Friday, I didn't. So, things happen. Good things happen. Hi, Serpa. I see you there. So, for the last couple of weeks, I've been very busy. A lot of things have been coming up, good things. Started a new job at a chiropractor's office doing some training, in addition to my in-home training, in addition to taking a course on being a medical fitness specialist, and in addition to now starting 2 new books, besides doing the podcast, live stream, and all that fun stuff. And so I was lucky enough for the last few weeks that one of my oldest friends actually came back home to stay with his parents for a little while. And so it was basically like that. It threw everything off in a good way because I saw him more in the last 2 weeks than I did in the last 15 years combined. And so that was basically, if he called up and said, "You want to hang out?" I said, "That's it." Anything else was put off, including doing some of my work for the chiropractor's office. I've been watching videos on this training program that I'm getting into, and I'll show you in a little bit. I have equipment down here that I can show you that's weird stuff that's fun. But he and I got to hang out a lot. Here, I don't think he's going to pop into the chat, so I'm going to put a photo of us up. This is the first photo that we took together in almost 20 years. I know he's not going to... He's probably sleeping at home right now because he was wiped out when he left here. I drove him to Logan Airport yesterday, and before he left with his bags, I'm like, wait. We got to get a picture together because we never, ever think of it. So anytime that I post something for his birthday or things like that, it's always photos from 20 years ago, and it's like, ooh, you guys never age. It's like, yeah, well, it's 'cause we never take new photos. So, I was hanging out with him a lot, and the funny thing is that, so on Friday, the day that we were supposed to do the live stream, he and I went and hung out. He shot me a message and said, I just want to go do something. Let's hang out and get into shenanigans. That's what he said. I had no idea how this was going to go. So this Friday is going to be like, I'll have to write a blog post about it. So I went and picked him up just like we used to do in high school and such. And we started heading down Route 6A. I was going to go to Orleans, Eastham. He wanted Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, all right, we can do that. And I pulled up to, any of you that are from Cape Cod, there's a rotary in Orleans where the highway meets. It goes from being Suicide Alley, which is 2 lanes, to 4 lanes. But I'm in the rotary, and I look to my buddy John, and I'm about to say, I think there is Dunkin' Donuts in Eastham. And before I could even get the words out, bam! We get rear-ended at the rotary. Now, before anyone thinks anything, and Mrs. Zwicker, I know you're in the chat, and he's going to be mad that I'm even talking about this. But we were fine. Totally. There was literally no damage to the car. The dude that was driving the car came out and he's like, "Oh God, I wasn't paying attention." And he gave me his insurance stuff. I have it on my phone. So if I really wanted to mess with him, I could be like, "Yeah, my neck hurts." But it started with that, and we were done, and John was messing with me for the rest of the day. He would just say, "Oh man, my neck hurts." And I'm like, "Stop it." It wasn't really hurting. He was just messing with me. But we kept driving after getting rear-ended in Orleans, and we find the Dunkin' Donuts in Wellfleet, and we go in, order our stuff. He goes to use the bathroom. It's at the end of this hallway. You go in, shut a door, and I'm waiting there and waiting and waiting, and I can hear the hand dryer going, and I'm standing there waiting. And then from behind me, I hear, "Hey, let's go." He had gone out through like a service door and come back in the front, which, oh my God, it was just like, all right, we can go. And we went outside and we were eating at picnic tables, and from out of nowhere, my brother shows up at this Dunkin' Donuts in Wellfleet. He doesn't live in Wellfleet. I don't live in Wellfleet, but he happened to be there. So we all were chatting, and we drove around for a while. And randomly, we ended up, I took him to Bass Hole. I'm not sure if, and if you're from Cape Cod, you'll know Bass Hole. I don't even think I have a photo of it. Oh, yeah, I do. There we go. Sweet. So this was where we used to always go and hang out in high school. Bass Hole, Grays Beach. It's in Yarmouthport. And we used to go there with him and our other buddy Barry. We were the Three Musketeers, always in trouble. Well, not in trouble. But we went there. I wanted to make sure he got to see that before he left. His two kids have a plank on the board. He got to take... He was actually crouched down taking a picture when I was there. So we went there. And then randomly, we were driving past this cemetery, and he was like, "I wonder what the oldest grave is in there." And I said, "Well, my grandfather's buried in there." So he's like, "Oh, let's go find his grave." And we end up around this time of day. So when I would have been going live last week, I was in a cemetery showing him my grandfather's grave. And we're there. And off in the distance, there's two little kids with a dog walking through the cemetery. And it was kind of a little bit foggy. It was the weirdest thing. But for he and I, who have known each other going on 30 years, it was a normal day. So that's where I was last Friday, getting in a car accident and then showing one of my oldest friends my grandfather's grave. So, hi, Kate. I just told a wicked funny story, and you didn't hear it. That's all right. I've got plenty more funny stories. Did you win any money? My sister Kate's at Mohegan Sun playing slots and going crazy. All right, well. So also last weekend, we had a wedding. And my cousin Sarah, she got married. Well, I want to say for the second time, but it's not. She was married during COVID last year. And nobody could go, basically immediate family, and it was on Zoom. So this year, we had the actual wedding at the Pelham House in Dennisport. Awesome, awesome location. I walked her mom, my aunt, down the aisle. And it was so much fun. So I'm standing here. My family is kind of in front. And my cousin Keith, he was marrying his sister and her husband. But they're already married, so there was no risk. And he basically said he was a reverend. And one of my uncles looked at my mother and said, "I didn't know Keith was a reverend." Oh, God, it was the funniest thing. Because he was serious. And then he got mad about it. Which, jeez. Ashley knows, she's in the chat there, that Uncle John got mad about Keith being a reverend. And Uncle Steve was yelling while they were, like, quiet and talking. He was standing behind everyone talking about how he was mad that they were valet parking because he can't just sneak out. So it's like, oh. And his daughter was like, "Quiet, Dad, quiet." So we had the wedding. I didn't do much dancing. I kind of watched. This is like the only proof that I was really there, is that photo. And my cousin Keith, who's in the back there, he danced so much that his shirt looked like he took a shower in his clothes. So that was pretty good. It was a good time, was had by all. And so that was the great weekend that I had. Now, this week, episode 25 of the podcast has debuted, and I'm really excited about it. I say that every week, and I should, because that's good marketing. But basically, episode 25, I'm not making major changes. What I'm doing is trying to make tweaks to try to get more engagement with the audience. And so this week I started something called the Top 5. I had a history segment, This Week in History. It was a longer segment. What I've done is kind of slice that down to one main story and something called a time capsule, which is for whatever the week is that the podcast comes out. I find a date in history and I share, number one song, number one movie, and things like that. So I trimmed it down, and then the top 5 kind of is moving into that other slot. Now it's like a duplex, 2 families in one spot. The first top 5 this week is Cape Cod Icons. So when I say Cape Cod Icons, it's basically the 5 places you should see if you've never been to Cape Cod. And you can go see them if you've been there before, too. They're great. But if you've never been to the Cape, you need to go to these 5 places. Some people thought I meant icons like people, and there'll be other countdowns like that, but without spoiling it all, it's basically places that are outside. Oh, sweet. Business opportunities in the chat. Just shoot me a message or a text. If you shoot me a text now while I'm on, I won't get it, but I'm big about creating things. I don't know what it is, but yeah, while I'm thinking of it, go to whereyourwishes.com. I mean, when it's getting relaunched in July, because basically Kate's company did so well that she sold everything. And so she's having to restock. And I said to her, and I'll say it because you're in the chat, it's a great problem to have when everyone has bought your stuff so much that you can't restock. That's an awesome problem to have. And then I can start promoting you on the podcast again going forward. But so the top 5 icons, Cape Cod Icons, I've got a video corresponding that's going up on YouTube in the morning with lots of photos. So that'll be fun. I hope you check that out. This podcast is great. It's different than my typical one because I've veered a little bit off the path of what my normal formula was. The top 5 thing is 1. I did Restaurant Storytime Part 2. If any of you have listened to the podcast and heard the first part of it, it's stories from my experience working in the restaurant industry. And I try my best not to name names because the stories are funny. I don't think we'd get in trouble anything legally, but some people might not want to hear these embarrassing stories. Like episode 1 of Restaurant Storytime was basically a snowball fight indoors with one guy that didn't even know he was part of the snowball fight. It was an ambush by me. And I didn't use his name because he might not want to hear that and remember the time that I whipped a snowball at him from 10 feet indoors. So the one that's coming up that's on episode 25 is from my first year in the restaurant business. I was 15 years old, very naive. And so there were 2 cooks working in the kitchen, me, the dishwasher. One other cook was across the parking lot in our prep room. It was detached from the kitchen. And every time they would send me across the parking lot to get something from our walk-in or our freezer, the other 2 cooks, it wasn't busy. So the other 2 cooks would have cherry tomatoes. They're like the size of a quarter. And they would start throwing them at me as I walked across the parking lot. And I told the other cook, the prep guy, I said, they're throwing stuff at me. What do I do? And so first thing he did was he gave me a big sheet pan. If anyone's familiar with them, they're usually 3 feet by about a foot and a half. And they're kind of sturdy, but that's what you bake stuff in big ovens. And he gave me a sheet pan to hold up and defend myself. So later in the night, it's now dusk. It's a little bit darker than it is outside right now. And they're still throwing tomatoes at me. They're suckering me into going across because I'm 15. And when the older guys are like, go get us this, you do it. And this last time I went in there, and the prep guy, I'm holding the sheet pan up to defend myself, and he says, here, put your hand back. So I go like this, and he puts something in my hand, and he says, throw it when you get the chance. And I'm not thinking about it. I'm just holding this thing. So I'm coming out. You got a picture. The parking lot is basically wide open. There's nobody there. Otherwise, the cooks would have been busy doing their job. But at our kitchen, there's a picket fence. One of the cooks is bobbing his head up and down like he's trying to get a bead on me to throw, but he doesn't want to get hit. And so he's got me distracted. But off to the right is where our dumpster was, and that was surrounded by a fence. And the other cook is on a picnic table next to the dumpster. And he's throwing the tomatoes at me. And I'm dodging them. And eventually he runs out of ammo. So he's got to go off the picnic table, run. There was a little opening where we would walk in between the two fences. He had to run there and go up the stairs, and he would have been home free. I was 40 feet away, and we're talking about a 3-foot, maybe, wide opening. So imagine that in your mind. That's what I got. And I threw what I thought was a tomato at this guy. And in the darkness, you could just hear the pop as it hit him right in the side of the head. It was a red bliss potato, which was like hard as a rock. And he went down. And this guy was 6'3", 240 pounds. And so I knocked him out, TKO on the kitchen, on the deck. And I go running over because first thing that's in my mind is, oh my God, when he gets up, he is going to kick the living hell out of me. And I went over and I'm just like, I'm sorry, I thought it was a tomato. And I'm 15 and skinny and terrified. And he just looked at me and he said, no, it's my fault. I started it. So I got off easy. But that's Restaurant Storytime in the episode 25, where I knocked this guy out with a potato and luckily nothing happened to me. Also, I talk about something that my sisters and my mother in the chat will remember, Jolt Cola, and how big of a part of my teenage years that was. It was basically I would say, first energy drink. It was billed as all the sugar and twice the caffeine. So essentially, you drink that and you're out of your mind sugar high. And in high school, I had bought a video camera because I wanted to be a film director. That obviously didn't work out. But my buddies and I would drink the Jolt and be insane. And some of the skits we would make were just this. It was like a fever dream from the caffeine and the sugar. And I don't know how my mother didn't kill me for some of the times. We're talking drinking Jolt at 11 o'clock at night and then making skits with my camera in my room, which was on the second floor, and falling down and throwing things. I don't know how we got away with it, unless my mother thought I had talent with my camera. Sorry that I didn't make movies. It was all for nothing. I destroyed the room. But Jolt Cola, it's a great story. It actually has started making a comeback. I guess Dollar General stores have it, which I don't know what that says about where its comeback is, where the dollar store is the one that carries Jolt now. I haven't had it yet. I might. I'm on the fence about going and trying it because I don't drink soda and I really don't have sugar. So if I suddenly introduce that, I don't know what it'll do. Like my head will be just as red as the Jolt can was. But that's the stuff that's on episode 25 of the podcast. I'm super thrilled because with episode 25, I got this banner to show that I got it. Buzzsprout is my hosting site. I post the podcast to that, and it's like a spider web. It goes out to Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, Amazon, all of them, and more. So you can get it anywhere, and let me know what you think. If you've never listened to an episode, 25 I think would be a good jumping off point because I've been priding myself on it being it's New England centric, and it's travel, history, a lot of lifestyle topics that I've experienced. I've had people come to me and say that I should talk about serious subjects. And what I've said to them is I speak of serious things if they've directly impacted me. Because the whole idea with the In My Footsteps name is that everything I talk about, I'm either knowledgeable in my mind about, or I've experienced it, or I've been there. Like when I talk about places to visit, travel, like in episode 25, I talk about Groton, Connecticut. I've been there. So I can tell you, oh, go check out, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Oh, Avery Point Lighthouse was the one. Yeah. So Kate saw. Yeah. Some of the people in the chat know who I'm talking about. That it's someone that was a friend of mine when we were younger, and we kind of drifted apart. And he's very knowledgeable about everything in the world, if you know what I mean. Wink. He knows everything about everything, but yet his life hasn't quite lived up to what he thinks his knowledge is. So hopefully you'll check out episode 25. It's doing pretty well. I'm very excited because the podcast is picking up steam. I'm doing weekly episodes now. It was 3 weeks on and 1 week off. Now it's 3 weeks with a full episode and then 1 week with a shorter bonus episode. So lucky everyone if you grew up on Cape Cod in the 70s and the 80s. Episode 26, the special bonus one, drum roll, is going to be about the Cape Cod Coliseum. And so it's like, if you didn't grow up on Cape Cod, the only way I could describe the Coliseum is now it's a warehouse. That photo is from a couple years ago. It does not have the letters on it. You can see them, the outline, but it's been closed for more than 35 years. It was very much a flash in the pan. So we're talking 12 years it was open. 1972 to 1984. They started off as mostly like a hockey rink. They had their own team, the Cape Cod Cubs. Then they expanded to concerts, and that's where it took off. If you grew up in the 70s or know 70s music, think of any big name rock band from the 70s, and they played there. I guarantee you they did. You're talking about David Bowie. You're talking about ZZ Top, Tom Petty, Kiss, Grateful Dead, Van Halen. They played in South Yarmouth, Massachusetts on it was a quiet road then. A quiet road that runs along the highway. And the Coliseum was the biggest entertainment venue basically in southeastern Massachusetts for 12 years. And then it was gone. And what happened was it was purchased in, I think it was 1979 by Vince McMahon, who was part of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation then. And he brought in all of his wrestlers. They would do usually 2 shows a summer there. But as he started getting bigger with the WWF, he didn't have time to run the Cape Cod Coliseum. He essentially started building his empire that he's a billionaire now. But he essentially started building his empire in the offices at the Cape Cod Coliseum, which is fascinating because from where I am now, I could start walking and be there in 10 minutes. It's right up the street. So that's going to be episode 26 coming next Thursday. It's a shorter episode. It might even be 26 minutes. But that's going to be a lot of fun. People that I talked to about the Coliseum basically would say, oh, it was a great time, but I don't remember it because I was drunk. So hopefully this will remind people of it. And so that's coming up. So a funny story, yesterday, like I said, I drove my buddy John to Logan Airport, and I've never been to Logan Airport, ever. Anytime I've flown, I have gone to TF Green in Providence, basically. So he's, hi Jen, I saw you there. I didn't want to just point you out. Some people think that if I say their name because I see them in the chat, that means I can actually see them, and they get spooked. And I'm like, no, no, no. I just see you pop up in the chat. For those of you watching this after on IGTV or YouTube, I will talk to people in the chat, but you folks watching it after can't see it. So, sorry, it looks like I'm crazy, like I'm a dog seeing a squirrel. Speaking of, so, before I continue with the Logan Airport story, I wanted to show you some of the equipment that I've gotten for my chiropractor job. Now, this tool here is a trigger point tool for your neck. These things are rubbery, so you're supposed to kind of put it on your neck and massage out the muscles. Basically, I brought this yesterday to show my mother for her neck. When I got it out of my car, my sister Ashley, her dog Buddha, saw the colors and me carrying this, and boy, did he want to chew this up. He almost knocked me over, and he's like 90 pounds. So I had to hide it. And then my little niece Sylvie came over, and I said, she's going to take this and just snap. So I had to hide it. And before I left yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, I got to show you this tool. But these are like $13.99 on Amazon. But this is supposed to massage your neck muscles because everyone's got a sore neck. But I was gifted one of these. Wait till you see the other one, though. So, this, oh God, can you see it? This is called a J cane. And it's got these little knobs on it. And what you do is, boy, this will be fun. I know how to use it, but it looks weird. It's got handles here. So for example, I've got a knot right in my upper back, which feels great. But you put this tool in there and you pivot it using the handles and basically like dig into your back. God. But yeah, I was taught how to use this on basically every part of your body. Feet, your ass, low back, shoulders. But it looks like something that you would hang a bird feeder from. Hopefully my boss never sees this and is like, what, you making fun of my products? No, no, no. Just saying I've never seen it ever. And I've been a trainer for over 5 years now. And I've never heard of a J cane or seen it until last week. So yeah. But basically, so, see, I told you, these live streams, they just go off the rails. I try to have a direction, and then I'm all over the place. And I haven't had really any caffeine, but, you know. What I was talking about was going to Logan Airport. And I brought John up there. And so we got to the drop-off point. And I told you, I pulled him aside, and I'm like, look, we need a photo together. Because it was so I could post it so that his wife knew that I got him to the airport. That was what I told her. I said, I wanted you to know. Oh, you should see then, Jen, I'll have to show you. I've been watching videos on people getting their spine aligned, and me working there now, I get free alignment. So I'm hoping that I can convince the doctor to just strap me in a chair and pop my shoulder back in right, pop my ankle back in right so I can run again. It sucks. Once you top 40, it's like, Jesus. That's why I need things like this to like work out knots in my body. Just sleeping wrong, you got to start digging this into your skin. Ugh. But for anyone that likes driving and doing road trips, I recommend the Waze app for driving. And the reason why is that it tells you where the cops are. So that's great because then you can speed but not get caught. 2 years ago, I did a 2,100 mile road trip in 6 days, which was lots of driving. Never got stopped once because I had Waze. I had a British man helping me along because his calm British voice would help me when I was driving for 7 straight hours. But every now and then they have special voices that you can use for Waze. And so the one that I used yesterday was Boy George. I kid you not, it was Boy George. For anyone that grew up in the 80s, so Kate, you would know Culture Club and Boy George. Lindsay and Ashley, you might, well, yeah, you would. But Boy George was directing me. But his voice was quiet, and all he would talk about was, like, wanting us to get tea and stuff. My whole ride home, I was in traffic going down these terrible back roads, and he's just like, oh, traffic is terrible. You're going to have to get some tea. And I'm like, thanks, Boy George. That doesn't help me get home. But yeah, definitely check out Waze. They've got Boy George is funny. Cookie Monster is funny, but he doesn't give you like distances. It's just his voice saying turn left, which is not that good. But I'm essentially, right now, it's a good place where I'm super busy with a lot of stuff, but it's all stuff I like. And there's some things that I can't talk about yet that are really big. The family knows because I'll tell them off of social media. But essentially, with being as vague as I can be, it's a book project. And it's going to be something that could be very, very big, like bigger than anything I've done before. I'm looking to get all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted before I start promoting what it is. I've already started writing it, which, I mean, that's good. But I have a cousin in Manhattan who's a big-time literary agent, and I'm speaking with her to kind of pick her brain. I'm trying to avoid asking her to represent me because I feel like, A, she's in Manhattan, so if she wanted to meet, I mean, we could do Zoom, I guess, but it's also family. I feel with something like that, I don't want it to be a conflict of interest. So, because then if the book doesn't do well, I'm going to say, you didn't represent me right, or something like that. No, I wouldn't. Well, have fun, Kate, going back downstairs to Mohegan Sun. If you win big, yay. I don't know what else to say. Just win big and then, yay, buy all your own products and, I don't know, make a second company like the people did on Instagram, like faking it. But yeah, I'm doing this semi-secret project that I hate being so like vague about, but it's really exciting. And it's like when I have good news, I feel like I'm gonna bust. So before I forget, where the hell is it? There it is. So of course he's not in the chat tonight because it's his birthday today. So he's not gonna see this, but I wanted to wish happy birthday to my buddy Steve. You that have listened to the podcast, you know him from the Dedication to the Craft photography series. He may be making another appearance coming up soon because I have one of my photo trips to Martha's Vineyard that I want to talk about, and he was there. So I think that photo that's on the left in the middle, I think that's from that trip. But I want to get his view on the whole trip. I don't want to spoil it too much, but the funny part was we took his Jeep over to the vineyard. No, we took my car. Yay, I'm already wrong with my facts. Sorry. We took my car to the vineyard, and he had never been there, and we had to do a toss-up on where to go shoot the sunset between Gayhead Lighthouse and Menemsha. Menemsha, for anyone that hasn't been to the vineyard, that is where Quint lives. That's where his boat is. In Jaws, when they go sailing out, ultimately to Quint's doom, they're sailing out among the fishing shacks. It's Menemsha on the vineyard. And I wanted to go there, but I acquiesced to Steve because he'd never been there. And on the way back, we stopped and got pizza right by the Steamship Authority dock. And we're sitting at a table just eating pizza. And there's a skunk just wandering around. No fear of humans because they have no predators on the island. There's no coyotes. There's no I mean, I guess there might be hawks, but nothing like even on Cape Cod. So they have no fear. I mean, I don't think coyotes could swim that far over, although deer do. I've heard that the deer swim across to the vineyard. But yeah, so happy birthday to Steve. God, he and I go back well over 25 years to high school. And so he's probably out celebrating. But I wanted to make sure that I wished him happy birthday. I did this morning, but yeah, I didn't expect him to be on here. Like, oh, it's my birthday, I'm going to go watch his live stream. No, I didn't think so. So yeah, hopefully if you haven't checked out the podcast, you will give it a shot. I'm always promoting it, always marketing it, sometimes overboard, but that's the only way you build your audience is you find different ways to promote yourself. So episode 25, it's got the debut of the top 5 countdown, top 5 Cape Cod icons. Not to spoil it, but the next top 5 countdown is going to be top 5 lighthouses that I've gone to visit because I love lighthouses. And the catch with that is they have to be off Cape Cod. I had to have gone to visit them because I could basically throw a rock and hit a lighthouse on the Cape. So they have to be off Cape. And so if anyone ever has suggestions for the top 5 countdown, you can always shoot me a message on here or email me, christophersetterlund@gmail.com. Find me there. I'm always looking to do Q&A, but there's never any Q's for me to A, so it's like, whatever. I don't know what else to do about that. But yeah. Top 5. Oh, you can't see the... There's supposed to be a trophy there, but my photo's in the way. I always like doing special slides for each episode. I'm really excited because tomorrow I'm going to actually... Oh, God, you're on a trip. Oh, that's right. It's early. It's still early out in Texas. So you can go to Apple Podcasts. If you prefer Pandora, Spotify. I made sure it's everywhere so that I can promote to whoever's favorite one it is. A lot of my listeners are from the Northeast, but then I laugh because I get 7. Oh, you got jeez. I have pepper spray in my car that someone gave me, and I literally am like, I don't need this. And they're like, just take it. So I have pepper spray in my car that I'm going to end up using to like spray on like a sub or something. I don't know if pepper spray goes bad, but Lindsay and Ashley, if you guys need pepper spray or something, I have it. I'm not going to say I'm my own weapon, but I don't have any fear about that. I'm always on random trails just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can't really get in the middle of nowhere on Cape Cod, but although we have had a shark kill someone a couple years ago and now a humpback whale try to eat someone a few days ago, which it's like, where does that even come from that a humpback whale like tried to swallow a guy? It's like, well, the world's going crazy. So, yeah, if you check them out, Jen, and you like them, just let me know, because I try not to put people on the spot. Like, for example, my buddy Steve that I just showed all his photos of, he gets, in episode 25 that's out now, my time capsule is his birth date. And I give the #1 song and movie and TV show. And it's one of those that it's like an Easter egg. If he listens to it, I'll know because he'll tell me. Oh, Jesus. So, several years ago, we had a black bear down on Cape Cod, and it was this whole big watch because it came, I think, over the bridge. One of the bridges, it must have walked over it. And it ended up, so down in Brewster, so you're talking 30 miles or so inland that it made it. And I went out there to find it. And it was near the Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. And one of the rangers there said, I can't stop you from going in the woods. All I can do is tell you there's a black bear out there. And I'm like, yeah. And I started walking, and people started following me. They behind me, of course. So if the bear got me, they would run. But yeah, I went out to find the black bear. I never did. They caught it like the next day. But that's the best we ever had here. I mean, we get coyotes and we've got bald eagles now, but they don't attack people. God, I hope not, because I'm always looking for them. But yeah, this J cane just drives me nuts. I don't know if you're watching this after, have any of you ever seen or used a J cane? It looks like an S. But seriously, I've had to watch videos on how to do stretches with this, and there's one where a guy wraps a band around it and sticks it on his hip flexor. And working at the chiropractor's office, I'm going to be working with older folks and folks that have chronic conditions that I'm trying to make better. So how am I going to get them to use a band and tie that thing to their hip? It's like, I might as well just throw them down the stairs. They'd have a better chance of stretching their hip flexors that way. But God, don't let that get out. Someone's going to clip that where it says I'm going to throw my clients down the stairs, and it's, oh, Jesus. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. This is one of those, like, as I said, I missed last week because I was with my buddy John. I'll throw his face back up here so that he can see himself if he ever watches it again. He and I go back, what are we at now? 28 years? So I was busy with him, hanging out with him many times, which was great. And then I got in a car accident with him, got rear-ended, but there was no damage to my car. And he was so ready to go back home by the time I dropped him off, because not that a whole bunch of bad stuff happened, but he moved off of Cape Cod after high school, and he's lived in California longer than he lived here. So that's his home. As much as I'd like to say, yeah, we grew up together. He's like, yeah, well, I've lived in LA longer than here. But yeah, that's why I wasn't around last week, was my car got wrecked. And then at this time of night, we were in a cemetery because, yeah, of course it was. Yeah, it's just random enough to work. So, again, thank you to everyone who has tuned into the podcast. I'm now 25 episodes deep. 26 is next week. It's already done, but it's not officially released. And hopefully I'll just keep knocking those out. And this new opportunity I've got, hopefully soon enough I can share it with you and get people hyped up for it. It could be big. Fingers are crossed. I feel good about it. And, you know, I will be back next Friday at 8 o'clock. Unless I actually have my other oldest friend, Barry, who's usually in the chat. He's not there tonight, but he's actually coming down with his wife at some point this month. So I'm like, oh, he's going to come down, and then I'll be really behind on my work. But it's worth it, though. No way I would. When it comes down to it, family and friends come before everything I do. When it comes down, like, I see John for a few hours every couple years after seeing him, you know, for years, just all the time. Oh, thank you, Jen, so much. All the best to you. Be safe with your with your tiger that was on the loose, but you got your taser, so if you ever tase an animal, shoot me a photo of it. And thank you. You know, always make time for those that matter. Family, friends, those that have your back, have their back. That's the basics. I keep coming back to that. COVID and losing friends and relatives in the last few years has really sharpened my senses when it comes to that. So no work is ever more important than the people. And so I will be back next week. Sometime I'll be out on location again doing it, but every time I do this outside on location, my Wi-Fi craps out. So it's just like, why bother? I'll just keep doing it here with my Christmas background. So thank you all for tuning in. I will see you next week. And if not sooner than that, on all my Instagram stories and my craziness that I share with you all the time. Later.